Okay, so today we're going to be talking about the task in the social justice section of your independent task. This task is the letter to the Prime Minister regarding the asylum seeker policy. Okay, so what we're doing is we're going to be looking to persuade the Prime Minister to change his policy. Okay, so we're going to be writing to persuade. Okay, so today we're going to look at just some different persuasive language techniques that we can use to help persuade the Prime Minister to change the policy on asylum seekers. Okay, now the first thing you need to remember is who is your target audience. Okay, so your audience is the Prime Minister of Australia. Okay, so you must keep your writing formal. Okay. That means no slang, no g'day, how you going, nothing like that, okay? So no slang. Keep it formal, make sure you call him Mr. Prime Minister when you're doing it, okay? And that way you will make sure your target audience is being achieved. All right? So here we'll go through some of the techniques that you can use to try and persuade. All right? The first one we're going to look at is emotive language. Okay, so emotive language is when you use words that try to make the reader feel happy, feel sad, feel angry, feel guilty. Okay, so you're trying to use language that gets an emotional reaction out of the reader. Okay, so for example, you might say, okay, so you might say things like, asylum seekers suffer horrible conditions, and this is your fault, Mr. Prime Minister. Okay, so we're trying to make the Prime Minister feel guilty here, okay? We're trying to say that it's his fault that the asylum seekers suffer problems. And you can see that we've used our formal language by calling him Mr. Prime Minister in this case. So remember, emotive language, you're trying to get an emotional reaction out of the person that you're writing the letter to, or out of the audience that is reading this letter. Okay? So, the next one we're going to talk about is the use of repetition in your writing. Now, repetition is exactly what it sounds like, repeating yourself. So you're repeating words and phrases so that they get stuck in the reader's mind. Okay, and again, it links into stuff like emotive language. Okay, so stuff like, an example might be, okay, so here I've said disgusting conditions, disgusting policies, disgusting effort, Mr. Prime Minister. So you can see I'm repeating the word disgusting. Okay, it shows my disapproval at what's happening, it's emotive, okay, and I'm repeating it over and over again so that it gets stuck in the mind of the reader or the Prime Minister, and again, I've referred to him as Mr. Prime Minister. Okay, so that's another one that you can use to try and persuade. One that links into repetition is something that's called alliteration. Okay? Now, alliteration, is very similar to repetition, except we're not repeating the same word, but we're repeating the same consonant sound at the start of a word. So you want to repeat that same thing at the start of the word, and you do it sort of 3 times. So something like, going on from our last example, Okay? You can see, going on from our last example, disgusting. Instead, I'm saying it's disgusting, disgraceful, and disrespectful. Okay? You can see how that hammers home your point and using that alliteration. Okay? Another little persuasive technique, language technique we're going to talk about. And this is very, very important when you're writing something like this. Facts and statistics, okay? Okay, so facts and statistics are obviously really important. So it really, really shows that you know what you're talking about, okay? And it gives support to your argument, okay? But you must make sure your facts and statistics are correct, okay? So make sure okay? Make sure you check your facts, okay? Don't make facts up because it doesn't make you look like an expert. It actually, if you've made them up, makes you look rather silly, okay? If you've got good facts and statistics, it does make you look like an expert. And it obviously helps support the argument you are making, okay? So it helps support your argument and it makes sure that you are giving the facts that, yeah, help support it, all right? Next one, again, that links to this a little bit, okay? And it's great for these asylum seeker letters is to use a personal story, okay? So use an anecdote or a personal story. Okay, this makes it very personal for the reader. Okay, so this will show a personal side of the argument for the reader. Okay, by giving a story, it might be a sad story, it might be able to connect with the reader by making it a personal issue for them. Okay? This one is an excellent one to use in all types of persuasive writing, okay, and it comes up quite a lot. Rhetorical questions, okay? Rhetoric questions are questions that don't really require an answer, okay? Now, the beautiful thing about using these rhetoric questions is that they don't need an answer and it makes the reader think about your point, okay? And most of the time they have to agree with your point. Okay? Okay, so occasionally it forces the reader to agree with you, and it also makes the reader see your point from your perspective. Okay, so an example might be okay. So, do you enjoy sending people to your death, their death, Mr. Prime Minister? Okay. Yeah, it's a little bit over the top, but that links back in with our emotive idea as well, that emotive language, and it also leads into my next one. Okay. It's a bit of an over the top question, but leads into this next idea. Okay. Exaggeration, okay? I'm not saying make things up, I'm not saying make facts up, but what I'm saying is when you're presenting things, maybe use language that makes it sound a little bit better or a little bit worse than it actually is, okay? And that's an example from my question before. All right? Last but not the least. Okay, use personal pronouns when you're writing this letter and when you're writing persuasive pieces. Use things like okay, we, our, you, us. Okay, this will personalise the issue for the reader. Okay, that's it on our persuasive language techniques. Let me know if you need some help.